What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikiPikaPapa, and today I'm going to be talking about something that I don't do very often. Now, you all know that I am in this for a couple different reasons. I have two young daughters. They love Pokemon. We rip Pokemon. We collect Pokemon. We send silly things to PSA to encapsulate memories. Like, I am very much in the personal collection, just fun collecting side of things. But I am also very much in this because I have this strong belief that in the long run, I'm talking 10, 15, 20 years from now, these Pokemon cards and the sealed product are going to be worth more in the future than it is today. So by all definitions of the word, a big part of what I do is also in the investing space, right? I'm buying it now at a certain price with the hopes of selling it in the future for more. However, I will say that the vast majority of my investing dollars goes into the sealed space. And that is when I just sit back and think about it logically. You got sealed product, which is ever decreasing in terms of population. As expensive as it is and is crazy to think about, I guarantee you this year, there are going to be some first edition base set booster boxes that will be opened, which means next year there are going to be fewer of those first edition booster boxes in the overall population. In addition, when you open those booster boxes, what happens? You get more raw cards, and so there will be more raw cards that are introduced into the population as well. So next year there will be more raw cards. So when I'm thinking about where to put my money for true long-term, to give me the best shot at long-term price appreciation, because nobody knows what's going to happen in the Pokemon space, right? Like, Pokemon obviously has a very strong track record of success over 25 years of building and growing the brand. I feel very confident in it, but anything could happen. And I do believe that the sealed product gives us the best opportunity, which is that's why I'm putting my money in. However, these singles cards have been going absolutely batty as of late. And on the screen right here, we have the five best, the five most expensive from the Sword and Shield era. We're going to talk about their pull rates. We're going to talk about their gem rates, which I have on the screen. And all of that is leading into a single card that is in the Scarlet and Violet space that I actually am going to be spending some money on. It's a high dollar card. It's already up there in value, but I actually believe it's got some legs on it. I think it could even run even further in the future, even though we're in a little bit of an inflated market right now. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to go out and pull the trigger tomorrow. I'm going to sit back and watch it. The price is starting to flatten out. Hopefully, we'll see an opportunity for it to drop a little bit more, but I do have some thoughts on why it might not actually drop at all. So with that being said, see, these are the things that I look at. When I talk about underlying metrics of a singles card, one of the things I look at is pull rate. Pull rate is super important, right? That gives you an idea of the rarity of the card. The harder it is to pull, the more price it commands because it's harder to get your hands on. All of that makes sense, supply and demand. And look at the Moonbreon. The pull rate is 1 in every 2,000 packs. So you combine this infinitesimal pull rate with this amazing artwork from one of the most popular Pokemon of all time, and you get the Moonbreon, a $1,700 card. Now, when you look at the gem rate, which is below the price, it's got a 74% gem rate, which is a very good gem rate, but it doesn't matter. The pull rate is so low, the card is so awesome, it pushes right through that really high gem rate, and you end up with a $1,700 card. Now, looking at some of these other ones, you got the Gengar, you got the Giratina, right? The Gengar has a little bit better pull rate, 1 in every 10,000 or 1,040 packs, and then the Lost Origin Giratina, 1 in every 804 packs. That has a better pull rate. However, look at the gem rate of the Giratina down there. That's at 46%. Lost Origin had a much harder gem rate versus some of these other sets. I actually just got done pulling all the data for all of the sets in Sword and Shield, all in Scarlet and Violet, and their combined gem rate. So I'm going to do a video on that to compare the two different eras, and it's really fascinating stuff. And then when you look at the Rayquaza and the Leafeon, they have the exact same pull rate as the Moonbreon because that pull rate is based off of pulling one specific VMAX, and obviously these are all VMAXs from Evolving Skies. So really low gem rate. Rayquaza is obviously wildly popular. That's awesome artwork. So you get a $710 card with really good gem rate, and Leafeon is the exact same thing. So when I'm sitting here thinking about what Scarlet and Violet cards in this kind of hot market, do have the opportunity for long-term price appreciation, I'm thinking about pull rates, I'm thinking about gem rates, and I'm also thinking about what is going to be in demand 10, 15, 20 years from now. What characters, what sets, what cards are still going to be in high demand. And whenever I want to do that, I reference this list right here. This is a list of the most graded characters in January 2025 at PSA. And every month on this channel, we look at the actual grading volume from PSA. We look at the most graded singles cards. We look at the most graded sets. We look at the most graded characters. It paints this amazing picture of what's going on in the collecting and investing space at PSA from a macro level. And this is like the who's who of Pokemon, right? And when you think about it, Charizard and Pikachu have always, hard stop, always been number 1 and number 2 on this list, with Charizard Charizard predominantly being number one. We knew with Surging Spark, Super Electric Breaker, obviously heavy Pikachu sets, we knew that Pikachu had the opportunity to leapfrog Charizard in January. It did, and now we still have Charizard at number two, but that's not going to last very long. Charizard's going to come charging back. But when you go down the list, look at number three. Number three is Umbreon, right? And what did we see? We saw a $1,700 Umbreon card on there. Like, you got Gengar, which is here. And remember, these are all of the biggest name I mean, this is the list. These are the characters that people are sending through to PSA. So when I'm trying to think through long term, again, you can't predict the future. All you can take is the best information you have today and try and apply it to what you think will happen in the long run. And when I look at this, I feel really good about spending money on cards of these Pokemon, especially ones we've been doing this grading card video series for over 2 years now. So names that have always been on this list make me feel really good that 10 years from now, they'll probably still be on this list too. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about, because now we're going to start to get into that actual Scarlet and Violet card that I'm a big fan of, is I look at, has there been pent-up demand for that character? Has there been something missing in the hobby over the last couple years? And now I'm going to jump in and talk about some of the biggest Pikachu cards from regular sets. You know, this includes specialty sets and regular sets, but I'm not talking about Black Star promos, no Pikachu with gray felt hat, right? I'm talking about the biggest Pikachu sets from the normal series lineups over the last couple of generations. And Sword and Shield, this is it. Like, you had the Vivid Voltage Chunkachu right here, which was the card during the pandemic. This card was going for like $1,500 plus in PSA 10 holders. It was absolutely a monster of a card. And then it tailed off, right? It just couldn't find its traction ever since then. You had alt arts that were introduced into the hobby, excuse me. Alt arts were far more popular, far more fan favorites than these rainbow cards. Now, the Chunkachu, again, it holds a special place in history and in memory in my mind because I'll always remember it as being that card from the pandemic era, and it did spend quite a while at $90, $100, so to see it all the way up and holding pretty consistently in the $150, $160 range makes me feel good. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not exactly a rare card. There are tons of these out there, and again, $158 for the very best Pikachu card from the Sword and Shield era. I'm not saying $158 isn't a lot of money. It is, but in the grand scheme of some of these Pokemon prices, think about the first 5 cards we looked at slide number 1. Like, it's just not that much compared to some of its peers. So not a really big Pikachu card from the Sword and Shield era. And then the next thing is Sun and Moon. Sun and Moon didn't have a really big Pikachu card either. Again, the best Pikachu card you had from that Sun and Moon era is this Pikachu and Zekrom card from the Team Up set. Okay, now Team Up, short printed set, booster boxes are going for thousands and thousands of dollars. You got cards at the top. The Lovebirds is the big chase card from the Sun and Moon era. Like, Team Up in and of itself just brings a price premium to cards. And then obviously you got Pikachu and Zekrom on here, but again, think about this. Not what you would consider a high value card from the Sun and Moon era or from the Sword and Shield era, right? It's just at $102, nothing to shake a fist at, but it's not what you would expect. So when I was thinking about this, you got Pikachu, which is number 1, number 2 in terms of the most graded Pokemon, and we all know that. That's no sage secret. That's no point of wisdom I'm sharing with you. We know how popular Pikachu is. And then when I think back to Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield, there hasn't been a really big regular series Pikachu card in a while, and obviously we had Surging Sparks that came out, which blessed us with this special illustration rare. What we have seen from a pricing perspective in a lot of these new sets, it's been wild to watch, is we traditionally in Sun, Moon, and Sword and Shield, we'd see that Pokemon pop and flop. The price starts really high, then as more of the product is opened, more of those cards start to hit the market, so the supply is starting to get met with the demand in the single card space as more stuff is opened, and then you start to see the price come down. A lot of these singles in the Scarlet and Violet era, we haven't seen that. Either the price holds or the price actually starts to go up after launch. It doesn't matter. The market doesn't care that more of them are being reintroduced into the space. People just keep buying them at higher and higher prices. So when I look at this card now, we're 3 months into this card being launched. Came out in November, right? This card is actually down about 10% from where it launched. Again, fundamentally different than what we've seen. Again, I know you've got the rainbow coloration to this, and rainbow certainly hasn't seemed to do a lot in the past, but I think the way that this is a special illustration rare versus that rainbow Chunkachu or that Zekrom and Pikachu that we saw from Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield, I think this card is different from an artwork perspective. I don't think anybody's going to boo hiss around this. I think people absolutely love this. I think this is the best Pikachu card over the last 3 generations, which you think about that, I mean, that spans about 10 years at this point. I mean, the best Pikachu card from a regular set in the last 10 years. The price has been coming down 10%. I absolutely love all of that. The other thing I want to say too is this. I don't know what Pokemon Company is going to do from a reprint perspective. All I can do is talk about what happened in 2021. And what happened in 2021, was when Shining Fates was absolutely getting scalped out of the yin-yang. Booster boxes were going for $125. You couldn't find them anywhere. It reminds me very much of what's going on with Prismatic Evolutions, though Prismatic Evolutions is a much better set. The way Pokemon responded was they gave a report, or they gave an official announcement, just like they did with Prismatic Evolutions, and said, listen, we're gonna print this. And they did. They printed Shining Fates into the freaking ground. But what they didn't do too much of was they didn't do a great job of reprinting the previous sets. They did. They reprinted them, but they didn't reprint them with the volume that they did Shining Fates. They didn't reprint it with the volume that they did Battle Styles, which was the set after Shining Fates. So in the back of my mind, and again, there's nothing to back this up, this is just me thinking the way I think. In the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, Surging Sparks is sold out everywhere. Wildly popular set, more popular in my mind than a lot of the more recent sets that we've seen. So if it does get reprinted, but if it doesn't get reprinted to the extent that, say, Prismatic Evolutions or Journey Together or whatever set after that is printed, could this card end up being really, really special? Could this card be in a little bit less supply than some of these other ones that we're going to see further down the road? I don't know. That's just what I'm thinking about. And then, of course, I always talk about the metrics behind it, and I'm going to do some comparisons. And when you look at this, I didn't want to do this video until there had been over 5,000 of these cards sent to PSA for grading, because that's when I feel like we have a big enough sample size to kind of plant our flag in the sand and say, okay, this is a real gem rate. So we have 6,205 of these that have been sent to PSA for grading. So when you look at the Gengar, which the stats are listed below that, above it, and you look at the Giratina, which has the stats posted below that, look at those percent odds. Look at the pull rates and the pack odds right there in the middle. This Pikachu is almost the exact same odds of pulling as the Gengar, which is a $745 card from one of the most popular sets in Fusion Strike. And we know Pikachu at the end of the day is more popular than Gengar. So when I think about the pull rates, the pull rate in this card is very, very similar to that $745 Gengar. And then when you compare it to the Giratina, I'm doing a gem rate comparison here. This Pikachu has a 39.98% gem rate. And I will tell you, I've done this for a very long time. Traditionally, gem rates drop over time. I think this will end up in a 37, 38% gem rate, which is infinitesimally small for a huge chase card. I mean, the Giratina is the lowest gem rate big chase card from the Sword and Shield era, and it's at 46%. There is an opportunity for this card to have a 10% lower gem rate than the Giratina. And again, when you look at the raw card price for that Giratina right now, comes in at $680. I will never tell you to go out and buy something. I'll never tell you what to do or not to do. All I will tell you is the things that I'm thinking and things that I'm considering. And because of the pull rate of this card is so similar to the Gengar, because the gem rate of this card is much lower than the Giratina, because in the back of my mind I do have this really weird feeling that Surging Sparks isn't going to be underprinted, but I do think that Prismatic Evolutions and sets beyond that are going to be printed in much greater quality. I think this Pikachu card has the opportunity to be something really special in the long run, even though it's already sitting at a very, very high price point of $460. I'm gonna sit on the sidelines for a while. I'm gonna see if it drops in price, but if it starts to go up a little bit, who knows what I'm gonna do. I just might pull the trigger on this one. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it insightful. I hope you had a ton of fun. And if you did, hit that subscribe button or give us a thumbs up. I appreciate you more than I can say. I hope you have an epic one. I'll talk to you soon. See you later, everybody. Bye.